Epstein's personal 727 aircraft arrived at PBIA from Newark at 5 p.m. The investor, traveling with a small entourage, was met at the private Galaxy Aviation by a black Escalade and a driver. Sources tell News Channel 5 that Kenneth Starr, now a top lawyer in Los Angeles, will arrive here tomorrow morning. Reclusive billionaire Jeffrey Epstein, once labeled one of New York's most eligible bachelors, was investigated by the Palm Beach police for months. The police conclusion: Epstein's Palm Beach mansion was a revolving door for women, and in some cases girls as young as 16 hired to give Epstein massages. In some cases, the report says, the massages led to sex. That according to a voluminous probable cause affidavit. The Palm Beach police chief protested vigorously when the state attorney's office, citing racy suggestive websites created by some of the girls, charged Epstein with a misdemeanor of solicitation of prostitution. The case, however, did not go away. It was referred to the FBI. John Connolly, a respected investigative reporter, has been on the Epstein story for a year. He says the Palm Beach police chief has been vindicated.
Chief Ryder, much to his credit, forwarded this investigation to the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office. I have learned that those people have done a very, very big investigation of their own. Consequently, I do believe Jeffrey Epstein is going to take a plea to a felony count probably as early as tomorrow.
Connolly says despite Epstein's legal firepower, his strategy has backfired.
Originally, I'm sure his original agreement, which he must regret not taking now, required him not to go to jail, but to be a registered sex offender. So I'm sure that he regrets not doing that. But the opportunity to go to jail certainly has arisen here for Mr. Epstein.
Epstein, we are told, is spending the night at the Breakers, not in his Palm Beach home, which is currently under renovation. Jeffrey Epstein, shown getting off his private plane at PBIA last September 6, was indicted 17 months ago after a year-long investigation by the Palm Beach police. Under scrutiny now for more than 2.5 years, he is yet to step foot in a local court. New York-based investigative reporter John Connolly, who may write a book about Epstein, says big money can slow down justice.
Tim, if either one of us were indigent, I'm sure that we would have been in jail probably 2 years and 5 months ago, not 2.5 years later. He's got, 5 lawyers, 6 lawyers, 7 lawyers working for him, 2 or 3 PR people working for him. Brings in the former prosecutor went after the President of the United States. I would think that's a lot of artillery.
In addition to high-profile local attorneys Guy Fronston and Jack Goldberger, New York's Gerald Lefcourt, and Harvard appeals specialist Alan Dershowitz, Epstein's legal team includes the former Clinton prosecutor Kenneth Starr, who sources say has come to South Florida several times to try to make a deal. Legal expert Michelle Suskauer.
Delay, delay, delay. That's what he is doing. And it's because these cases do not get better with time. They get worse for the state and better for the defense.
The court docket, with his name on it, lists a string of delays and continuances, and that speaks to a deal in the works.
Now, if they can't make this go away, then they're going to minimize the damage. And that's what happened here. It's probably going to be damage control to have the shortest amount of prison time, the least amount of harm to him.
If, as charged by Palm Beach police, Epstein paid underage girls for sex at his Palm Beach mansion, why isn't the talked-about deal of 18 months in state prison happening? Investigative journalist John Connolly.
Well, I'd be shocked if he doesn't go to jail. But then again, this is Palm Beach justice. It wouldn't be the first person to violate the law who walks away. And this guy apparently is prepared to use whatever money he has, and that's certainly questionable, not to go to jail.
The last time we saw Jeffrey Epstein in West Palm Beach was September 6th of last year. He was getting off his private jet at PBIA to huddle with lawyers, fighting charges he used his mansion in Palm Beach for sexual escapades with girls under 18. Reliable sources tell us he'll report for a 1.5-year term in prison in Florida in June, then face a year probation. The fact that Epstein was allowed to travel to Israel reflects his vast business interests around the world, according to someone close to the case. But allowing someone soon to be imprisoned on felony charges to leave the country is highly irregular. That, according to investigative journalist John Connolly, who has covered the Epstein scandal from day one.
In most instances where people are facing criminal time and because a plea agreement has been made or they're under arrest for serious charges, they are forced to surrender their passport. And apparently Mr. Epstein has not been forced to do that.
The fact that the court ordered Epstein not to have contact with underage girls may indicate that Epstein will be labeled a sex offender. That is something his vast stable of high-powered attorneys have been fighting. Sources tell us that Epstein will likely report to a state prison with modern internet facilities so that he can do business from behind bars. It's been more than 3 years now since Palm Beach police started investigating Jeffrey Epstein. Reporter Connolly says money has bought him time.
I've always been a bit shocked by the way the state prosecutor has handled this case from the get-go. Historically, the police have asked for arrest warrants and been given them. In this case, because of apparently some very high-powered attorneys, they've treated Mr. Epstein much differently.
Jeffrey Epstein went to jail just before 10 this morning. He pleaded guilty in open court. He agreed to serve a total of 18 months in the Palm Beach detention facility, 12 for felony solicitation of prostitutes, and an additional 6 for procuring persons under 18 for prostitution. The conviction stemmed from several incidents from August of 2004 to October of 2005. The prosecuting attorney would not say how many female victims there are. She would only say there was more than one adult victim and more than one underage victim. After 18 months in the Palm Beach detention facility, Epstein will serve another 12 months house arrest at his Palm Beach home. The 54-year-old will be confined to his home except for work and other activities approved by his probation officer. In addition, Epstein will serve 12 months of community service at his own nonprofit, the Florida Science Foundation, and he has to stay away from minors. The guilty plea and deal end a years-long process that could have sent Epstein to jail for 15 years.
It's a long process. There were a lot of considerations made by the state, having victims testify, and their feelings regarding that, embarrassment to them, which might occur. And so it's just been a long time resolving it, coming to what we thought was an appropriate resolution.
Within 2 days of his release, Epstein will have to register as a sexual offender. It's a designation he'll have to keep for the rest of his life. In the newsroom, Nichelle King, News Channel 5.
For more than a year, through a battery of lawyers, Jeffrey Epstein, seen here getting off his private plane at PBIA, has been trying to cut a deal with the FBI and the state attorney's office. A year-long investigation by the Palm Beach police detailed an assembly line of young women and girls coming to Epstein's mansion to give him massages. He would pay them $300 apiece. In some cases, one of them involving a 14-year-old girl, the encounters led to sexual activity, according to the Palm Beach police report. The father, stepping forward, is the first person to actively pursue Epstein and charge him with exploiting an underage girl. Facing a solicitation of prostitution charge filed by the state, Epstein was further investigated by the FBI. Sources say, with other charges pending, his attorneys, including the former prosecutor Ken Starr, shuttled in and out of Palm Beach to try to make a deal that would land him in state prison for a year and a half. Epstein's attorneys say the girls involved lied about their ages and in fact had questionable pasts. This lawsuit, filed by the Miami attorney Jeffrey Herman and the so far unnamed father of the victim, will bring a case that has been flying under the radar for many months right back to the front pages.
A few steps, a smile, and a wave to the deputy at the door. We watched Jeffrey Epstein walk out of jail, but only his attorneys heard from him.
He's very happy that his jail sentence is over and he can begin a new chapter in his life.
The last chapter took place behind bars. Epstein served 13 months of an 18-month sentence. Jail time followed court time when last June, Epstein pleaded guilty to procuring a minor for prostitution and solicitation. Epstein faces a 1-year house arrest and must now register as a lifelong sex offender. Typically, when released, the former inmates are able to walk free across this bridge to a parking lot below, but not Epstein. He was able to exit from an area below, an area where a vehicle was waiting for him, we're told for his security and privacy. Dozens of women say it was their privacy Epstein took away. Many of them say they thought they were going to his home to give him massages.
Jeffrey Epstein walks in, and he just removes his clothes, completely naked, and jumps in the shower. And my friend and I looked at each other, and we got really like, what's going on? He decided to flip over and basically start touching my friend, because she was closer to his chest, and touching himself.
There are more than a dozen lawsuits filed against him from people like this woman who claim they too are Epstein's victims.
There was never any victims. There are women who have filed lawsuits against Mr. Epstein, and we're going to challenge the evidence in those cases and defend them in court.
As exciting as this day is for the New York money manager, it isn't the first time he's walked this walk. He's actually been leaving the county detention center since last fall on work release. Epstein would work at his West Palm Beach office for 12 hours every Friday through Wednesday.
Perhaps the most uncomfortable part of Jeffrey Epstein's incarceration was this question by a lawyer of one of the underage girls he's said to have been involved with.
You have what's been described as an egg-shaped penis.
Epstein's lawyer immediately cried foul, and they walked out the door. The deposition was part of the ongoing civil lawsuit by up to 20 girls and women who said they were in some way abused in Epstein's Palm Beach mansion. Why did Jeffrey Epstein serve only 13 of his 18 months? Why was he allowed 6 days a week, 16 hours a day, to visit a plush West Palm Beach office to do his business? One of the disappointed lawyers who pressed for release of the FBI Epstein dealings said the treatment went way beyond preferential.
Anybody reading this order has to ask themselves, what was so important to the government that sex crimes described in this agreement were treated so lightly?
There were noted in today's non-prosecution agreement a number of very serious potential FBI charges against Epstein involving transporting underage girls to engage in prostitution. They were dropped, presumably because Epstein provided the FBI with information it wanted on other business dealings. There is no argument that Epstein got an extraordinary break. A backroom deal, some have described it. That's the way it works when deals are cut between good guys and bad guys who say nothing when it's all said and done.
Because they don't have to. There's no law or statute that says that the justification for a plea negotiation has to be actually written in there. It doesn't have to be written in there. And it really is something that we may never know, because it really is what came out of all of their negotiations.
One other break given Jeffrey Epstein: though a registered sex offender, he'll not have to wear an ankle monitoring device during his 1 year of probation.
Jeffrey Epstein back in the headlines tonight. It's not to fight any more accusations. Instead, it's about a Facebook page. So who's signing up to be his Facebook friend? News Channel 5's Rochelle Ritchie has been checking it out in our newsroom. Rochelle.
Well, Jay, the page was created about a week ago. So far, 2 women like the page and are followers of it. It also details the criminal investigation that led to his guilty plea to state charges of soliciting young girls for sex and promises to update any of those cases. A handful of people have already left comments. Jose Shamol writes, "I was in jail with Mr. Epstein. With all the money he told me he's paid out, what's another $2 million?" And David Weiss writes, "That's sad, man, what money can do to people." Epstein served just over a year in jail. He's now on house arrest, which ends next month. Lawyers for the billionaire say Epstein has settled lawsuits with 7 more women who sued him for abusing them. Now, to check out Epstein's Facebook page, follow the link on WPTV.com. Just click on the As Seen on 5 section. Live in the newsroom, Rochelle Ritchie, WPTV News Channel 5.
It appears Palm Beach billionaire Jeffrey Epstein is staying put. The New York Post reporting Epstein plans to move to Dubai. Epstein's attorneys tell News Channel 5 that is not true. The 57-year-old has settled the civil lawsuits against him, filed by underage women alleging sexual contact with him. Epstein has been serving a year on house arrest at his Palm Beach mansion. That ends next week.
Palm Beach billionaire Jeffrey Epstein will be a free man today.
After 1 year on house arrest, Epstein's federal probation ends today. News Channel 5's Thalia Hayden joins us now live from the federal courthouse with more. Thalia, good morning. Some people are saying that Epstein got off easy.
They are, Roxanne, and one of the reasons people are saying that was because of during his year-long house arrest, he was flying around on his private jet with permission, of course, but as of today, he does not need permission from anyone to go wherever he wants. Now, the 57-year-old faced dozens of lawsuits filed by young women, some as young as 14 years old. Now, in those lawsuits, the underage girls claimed they were lured into Epstein's Palm Beach mansion to give him sexually charged massages or sex in exchange for money. When Epstein pled guilty to 2 sex-related felonies in state court, federal prosecutors dropped their investigation into additional counts. He did serve 13 months of an 18-month jail sentence. Since placed on house arrest last July, he has taken taken several trips each month to his 8-story home in New York City and to an island he owns in the Caribbean. Many say Epstein has been granted special privileges because of his money and status, but officials at the Florida Department of Corrections and his attorneys say Epstein was treated just like any other probationer. Now, although Epstein is a free man today, he is a registered sex offender for the rest of his life. Live in West Palm Beach, Thalia Hayden, WPTV News Channel 5.
Well, a Palm Beach billionaire is getting his first taste of freedom in over a year. Convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein made a sneaky getaway from jail this morning. Stephen Holt was there.
The black sedan sped away from the county jail. Its occupant, registered sex offender and billionaire Jeffrey Epstein. He's dodging the hordes of reporters already gathered outside the typical inmate release area. And while he's a free man after a year in jail, his lawyer Jack Goldberger says Epstein is ready to move on.
He's going back to his home. He's got a year of community control, which he's going to serve, and he's starting that today. So he's very, very happy that this part of his life is over.
A judge sentenced the Palm Beach billionaire to 18 months behind bars for paying underage girls for sex, but his release comes early by about 6 months. Now more victims are coming forward saying he was let go too soon. Nearly a dozen women are suing him, including one who claims Epstein turned her into a sex slave when she was just 15 years old. Their allegations Jack Goldberger objects to.
We're going to challenge this evidence very, very closely. You're going to see that another story is going to come out. So Jeffrey's just happy that this is over, and he's ready to move on to the next portion of his life.
And that was Stephen Holt reporting. Now, Epstein may be out of jail, but his legal troubles are far from over. Nearly a dozen of his alleged victims are suing the billionaire.
Happy birthday to you.
George and Cindy Anthony, the grandparents of Kaylee Anthony, joined members of the public yesterday to honor Kaylee on the day that would have been her 6th birthday. The grandparents had not been seen in public since the Casey Anthony murder trial. Balloons were released in Kaylee's memory. Plans were also revealed for a memorial in her name. The future of Casey Anthony, the little girl's mother, could become clearer today. Judge Belvin Perry is expected to rule on whether Anthony must return to Orange County to serve probation for a check fraud conviction. Judge Perry presided over Anthony's murder trial and called the probation issue a topic he needed to study.
It is quite evident that this is a legal morass, that if anything could go wrong, it went wrong here.
Tonight, the Palm Beach billionaire who escaped a hefty jail sentence after admitting he hired underage prostitutes is once again at the center of a court battle. News Channel 5's Katie LaGrone joins us with this new information. Katie?
Kelly, some say Jeffrey Epstein got off easy when he agreed to a plea deal that left him in jail for 13 months. Today, attorneys for 2 of his alleged victims are now fighting to make sure this registered sex offender gets what they say he really deserves.
Jeffrey Epstein has been out of jail for more than a year, but the punishment he faces for soliciting young girls to his Palm Beach mansion may have just begun. Inside a federal courtroom today, attorneys for 2 of his alleged young victims argued their clients' rights were violated when lawyers for the hedge fund mogul managed to secure what they're calling a sweetheart deal with the government. The deal left Epstein out of criminal court and behind bars for 1 year.
This agreement should be invalidated because it was worked out behind the victims' backs, and had they ever involved the victims in this process, then he never would have been able to obtain the sweetheart deal that he did obtain, and he likely would be in jail.
Attorneys today claim the secret deal, which they say is the result of power and money, robbed their young clients of their right to get their side heard.
So to say that they are still angry about the whole process and the way that it went down, and that they want him to go to jail now, yes, if that's an option, that's what they want.
As part of today's hearing, attorneys want all documents and written communication between the government and Epstein's attorneys leading up to the secret deal. Roy Black, Epstein's former defense attorney, is fighting to keep the documents secret and his billionaire client a free man.
If the court allows these things to be used in civil proceedings and made public, it would interfere with future attempts for negotiations by lawyers with prosecutors.
And Jeffrey Epstein doesn't want to go back to jail.
I would tend to think you're probably right on that one.
Now, if the federal judge decides communication between the government and Epstein's criminal attorneys should remain confidential, this will likely kill the alleged victims' case. There is no timetable on when the judge will make that decision. Katie Legrone, WPTV News Channel 5.
Acosta signed off on a plea deal over allegations about Epstein on Palm Beach. And tonight, News Channel 5's Matt Cesney has more on Epstein's home on the island, just one of many around the world. Matt?
That's right, Kelly. Jeffrey Epstein has homes in New York, France, the Caribbean, and even New Mexico. And when he is here at his home on Palm Beach, it appears he prefers to stay out of sight.
I've lived here for 13 years, and I don't know anybody who knew him.
Former News Channel 5 anchor and reporter Tim Malloy says in a place as small as Palm Beach, that's unusual.
He was here around Easter, and he rides his bicycle around, usually with young girls, and so I have friends who saw him.
That was the last time Epstein was on Palm Beach, says Malloy, who contributed to a book about Epstein 3 years ago. This is a rare look inside Epstein's home, taken by Palm Beach police in 2005 during a search when the sex allegations first surfaced. All computers, we're told, were removed before police arrived, but the photos show nude artwork, a lavish bathroom, and a dental chair and equipment.
I was not a fan of Jeffrey Epstein, and you watched people yesterday saying that I threw him out of a club. I didn't want anything to do with him. That was many, many years ago. It shows you one thing, that I have good taste.
President Trump has distanced himself from Epstein, who now seems to spend his few Palm Beach days to himself.
He's like Quicksilver. He'd disappear, he's in and out. Nobody really knew him.
Tim Malloy says that Epstein's reputation has now gotten to the point where it's actually hurting home sales on the block where Epstein's estate is. He says it appears that many people here would prefer to forget or not even bother now with Jeffrey Epstein. Live on Palm Beach, Matt Cesney, WPTV News Channel 5.